Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steve.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We're here to talk who watches the Watchers. No question mark at the end. The question without a question mark, which annoys the heck out of me. First impressions.
Who watches the Watchers? Sorry.
Honestly, in my opinion, that is the most annoying part of this episode is the lack of question mark in the title. that gives away, I mean, that could say many things, but that gives away how I feel about the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I wasted some of our conversation during the break by asking Jimmy how he feels about the Prime Directive episodes. I don't know. I guess I like some of the philosophical aspects of that when you can find a good way to apply it and test the limits of it in a certain way. At least thus far, I feel like this was they were kind of stretching it to its limits. It seemed like they were, it was good, like a good comedy of errors that forced, or that kept producing the worst case scenario for Picard in the situation. Like, what's he going to do now? That kind of thing. And there's a little bit of that kind of, for lack of a better word, scope creep that was happening for the Pen Pal episode, where it just kept, they kept kind of making him give in by inches.
I think I have a better solution than he came up with, but we'll save that for the end of the episode.
Right, but I enjoyed it overall. Let's stop there.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely an interesting episode. Yeah, I don't know if it's like one I loved, but I was definitely into it, and there was a lot going on, and there's a lot to talk about. I think overall, yeah, I liked it.
So, does anybody have a theory on why the question mark's missing? Because I don't. I'm just asking.
I mean, have they had question marks before in the titles? I mean, like the old TOS ones, they have like the long sentence and
yes, TOS had question marks.
Who mourns for something or other?
Yeah, who mourns for Adonis? What are little girls made of?
Yeah, they had question marks in TOS. I don't.
City on the Edge of Forever. Wait, I might be wrong. I might be.
The Trouble with Troubles. They're cute. Oh.
You could technically read the sentence as being a fragment rather than a question. Like the who is the person, like the person who watches the Watchers. You could say like.
Shouldn't that be whom watches the Watchers?
That wouldn't be the no.
I'm just being ridiculous.
Damn it!
This was actually a Doctor Who episode, and he watched the Watchers.
But his name isn't Doctor Who.
I know. I am a fan. I know his name's not Doctor Who. I kind of like...
It's Mr. Who because he didn't really go to med school.
Doctor was his first name.
Doctor Who's his dad.
I like that we got to see proto-age Vulcans.
Mm-hmm.
Like that they looked sort of like Vulcans, but not quite like Vulcans. And the Bronze Age, I guess it was nice just that they weren't human, first of all.
Yes.
But second of all, the Vulcan logic and the Vulcan science and the Vulcan reason played very much into the story, and I liked that as well.
Yeah, and I thought that was slowly played out too. I thought it wasn't right off the bat, I found that really interesting.
That's that was, I think, the best aspect of that. I hadn't really considered about how that made me feel going through it, but I hate that kind of when you immediately go to these kind of primitive colonies. There's immediately that kind of visceral reaction from everyone, and they're doing that whole kind of we hate strangers, we just mistrust them already. We want blood, we're bloodthirsty. None of that. It's just this kind of a very good, curious exploration. He's proceeding,
Lico.
Nico. So, but by the end of the episode, it becomes apparent. I mean, sooner than that, certainly becomes apparent that he's motivated by his wife's death, and is reaching for something to reverse that, certainly. But it wasn't like it's not the same kind of human failing that we see in most of these situations, where it's more about being corrupt than it is about actually just solving the problem.
Which, that was like the instance of command was that guy who was a leader is just a corrupt jerk.
Right.
Whereas in this one, it's a little more nuanced.
You don't realize it's nuanced until the reveal Keith mentions.
Yes.
I know what's motivating him, and that made that character so much better having that backstory. And the fact that it's Ray Wise, already I was willing to forgive a weak plot because I really like Ray Wise. And it was immediately obvious it was Ray Wise, like from the first line he spoke.
So Colleen and I want to say rewatching, but we're watching Twin Peaks for the first time.
Which one of you?
Both of us.
So you neither of you have ever seen it?
Neither of us have ever seen it. So we're working our way through it very slowly. And I immediately was like, that's Laura Palmer's dad. She's like, I'm not sure. I'm like, it's Laura Palmer's dad. And I was like, I'm not going to look it up. And I didn't look it up till after the episode, but I'm like, even as it went on, I'm like, there's no doubt that's who that is. But she wasn't paying as close attention as me.
I saw his name come up in the
This was just before Twin Peaks, so he hadn't really blown up yet.
I think David Lynch saw this as like, this guy freaks out really good about losing people. So
I saw his name come up in the opening credit. Well, not opening, like the credits, like after the, and just as he was coming onto screen, so I didn't even have to take the time to recognize. It was like, oh wait, he's in this. Oh, that's him. So
he does do an episode of Star Trek Voyager in a few years as well, a single episode. But that's the end of his Trek characterizations, and no Seinfeld. Somehow he missed the Seinfeld.
And part of me was like, was he in a Seinfeld? And I thought I was going to see that.
It feels like he would have been. I don't know why, but
somehow
he's got so many credits. He's been in so much.
Yeah.
He's always good. I recently just watched the 3rd season of Fargo, and he's so damn good in that.
Oh, yeah.
For the brief couple episodes he's in.
Mm-hmm.
As like this mystical man. And he was the devil in Reaper. We won't even...
Oh, yeah. I liked that one.
But Twin Peaks is the iconic role for him. His daughter, the voice sounded familiar, and it left me jumping to IMDb. OG was played by Pamela Adlon, who in the opening credits was Pamela Segal because she wasn't married yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you know her from Better Things, Louie, Californication. She's big now. This was back at the beginning of her career. I mean, not the very beginning, because she had some credits before this. She did 12 episodes of The Facts of Life before this. But this was back early on, and even once I knew it was her, I still had trouble recognizing.
Yeah, I didn't know she was Bobby Hill.
Yes, she was Bobby Hill, King of the Hill.
That's the other reason why I probably seen her name.
Mind. I'm like, oh, I do know her. I know her really well. Yeah.
And then we had Catherine Lee Scott playing the head of the colony. Great to have a female head, especially of an older culture. And she's got a bunch of credits. She's known for House of Dark Shadows, 3 Christ. I wasn't so up on her, but she was in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a couple years ago, so she's still active. And then we had John McLiam playing the old colonist, and he's best known for First Blood, In Cold Blood, Cool Hand Luke, Sleeper, another big actor. So they had some heavy hitters in this episode. I mean, granted, Ray Wise and Pamela Adlon really weren't heavy hitters at the time, but they have become such since then. Yeah, I loved the guest cast in this episode. So good. The duck blind that we are introduced to is cloaked. When did Starfleet get cloaking technology?
Well, it wasn't cloaking, it was holographic.
Oh, that's right.
You're right.
Because right off the top, somebody says something like, you mean like the holodeck or holodeck technology?
Well, Geordi they made a big point of having Geordi come on like immediately and start talking about why do you need all this stuff? Unless they were writing blah, blah, blah. That's the reason.
So I wrote down exposition time. Good exposition. Mm-hmm. And then when that came up, I said, oh boy. Oh, here we go.
Oh, you were worried it was going to be a holodeck episode?
Yeah, I don't like this at all. But I was, minutes later, I was delighted that it was not. And my next note is, wait, now we may have something. Now you've got me. You've got me now, TNG. And so it definitely went a much better way after that.
So about the duck blind, and I didn't take a note on this, or I might have missed it and just back up to find it. How long were they supposedly there?
A while.
Months, years?
I don't know how long. I would assume years, but
it felt like years. Yeah.
It's just mind blowing to me that they would have something like that in that mountain and just be there for that long. But
say Star Trek Insurrection, they did the same thing, and everybody always says Star Trek Insurrection feels like an episode, and I just have never quite felt that way. But starting with the duck blind, similar to this, I was like, oh, maybe this is the episode they mean when they said Star Trek Insurrection's like an episode. Although they go a different way with the Prime Directive and the colonies, but that's a big part of the movie Star Trek Insurrection is this duck blind and observing.
What went wrong with it?
So like half my notes are about this duck blind, I don't take that many, but it's
I
still
have
like
no
most.
more notes about the.
I have some more too, Keith. So
yeah, you guys talk it out.
All right. So my first one was that was related to that. It was unclear exactly the type of malfunction that happened there and what was the cause of the injury for it. It looked like they were all just electrocuted by touching a surface or something.
right.
Like some of them knocked out immediately. The other guy rolled out. I guess the older woman was just injured so badly that she conveniently died later at the perfect time. The concept of them having it there in the mountainside to begin with, what I started thinking was, how were they monitoring the people from that position, and why did they have to be in that place to do it? I mean, if they were just using a camera or something, couldn't they have mounted it just right there and then been positioned somewhere else, like just around the corner or
Sure, I mean,
miles away?
I guess, but they have really good binoculars.
That's.
I guess they thought nobody would climb that cliff face, so they were safe there. If they were around the corner, somebody might have walked up there and found them.
Maybe. I'm just saying. Well, I mean, they could have been further away than where they were, where they could be seen from line of sight.
Their binoculars aren't that good.
That's my point. It implies they're using some kind of line of sight technology that they couldn't, or they're just like looking out the window instead of just being further away. And I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like if you send the researchers out into the jungle and they observe primates or whatever. You know, you want to observe without interfering. I get it.
But yeah, I mean, if they had that level of technology, that they have a hologram projector, you would think that they wouldn't need to be.
That's a
They could have little nanite flies that just fly in and take video up closer.
Right, or a little duck or something that walks down. Ducks in my mind, of course.
Obviously, because of the duck blind. Yeah.
I thought the illusion was very, just even the concept of that illusion being the thing that kept them. It would be there. It's very, and I just watched the Menagerie, so it's very Talos 4. I mean, it's almost exactly the same kind of, you go up the little hill, and there's this thing there that you can't see unless the illusion goes away, and that's like, oh my God, that's here. And then you can hide it again. So
Talos 4 had duck blind technology, is what you're saying.
They had superior duck blind technology. So I thought that, I don't know that it was an homage, but it reminded me of that a lot. And
maybe that's where Starfleet got the idea.
It makes sense. Maybe they worked something out. And I Menagerie, but that's a separate podcast. Maybe
instead of getting, if they were going to take the technology from Talos 4, instead of just getting the duck blind to hide the entrance, they should have got the technology that allowed them to film everything that happened on the Enterprise like it was an episode. With multiple camera angles and everything.
Oh my God.
And I thought this as I watched it, I forgot to look it up until right now, but the exteriors are in the same setting as many of the TOS whenever they did exteriors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And also in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and Voyage Home, and Picard.
Is it the Vasquez Rocks?
Vasquez Rocks, yeah.
So in Star Trek Picard, it actually is the Vasquez Rocks they go to. But in everything else, it's an alien planet.
Right.
Wait, are you saying this is a location or this is some kind of technique? Oh.
Yeah, no, it's the same location they used in a number of original series episodes, if you recognize it.
Friday's Child.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the Vasquez
Rocks episode.
Very famous Trek location.
Arena. I don't know why Arena. Yeah. So, among others. So, I think some of Shore Leave was there.
Yep.
So, yeah, Arena. I'm like, this feels real familiar. I'm okay with that. It just makes it feel really good.
So did you confirm that this was that place?
Yep.
This episode. Yeah.
I thought it, and I meant to look it up, and I just did. So yeah, I was fascinated by the duck blind as well for many TOS reasons, but also the things we've gotten into as well. Like, why was it there? What happened to it exactly?
Yeah.
And why didn't they just send people in disguise earlier, like Riker and Troy did?
And I will say, I love and I read it somewhere. They called it an undercover episode.
I like that aspect.
I did too. I love them getting the temporary plastic surgery or whatever you want to call it to blend in, because it just makes me think of so many old episodes where they just show up in the uniform. It's like, what's up? And it's like,
yeah, I think they should do it more often.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, those, especially TNG, they get all dressed up just to go on the friggin' holodeck. You should definitely have getaway. So it makes total sense. And I loved it. I thought it was great.
Even though, let's, how many people take their fun more seriously than their job?
Me. Exactly.
All of us? So of course they're going to put more effort into the holodeck than the mission.
Yeah, my Halloween costumes and wardrobe for on-stage shows is much more advanced than my, as people who can see the video can tell from my everyday wardrobe. So yeah, point taken.
Well, I mean, that's kind of your work too, though.
That's true.
I was gonna say
it's one of my jobs.
I was being facetious because obviously the Enterprise crew members are dedicated to their mission.
So you mentioned, I don't know why this didn't occur to me sooner. But, there was one aspect of this episode that reminded me that the book that I just narrated, and this also ties into it. So there are like two things that are eerily close, and I need to do some research, but I'm pretty sure that the book I did was written before this episode, or at least certainly before it aired. So I wondered about that.
This aired in 1989.
Yeah. I mean, I need to look it up for certain. I'm pretty sure that the book predated this. So there was a conversation that, you saw Picard trying to convince the leader of the woman from, did she have like a title? Was she like the mayor or something, or whatever title they had?
She didn't have a title. She was just in charge. Nuria.
Yeah. Yes. There was a conversation that happened that was very close to the way that beat happened. And it made me wonder, how many other conversations like that there have been. I'm sure there's other precedents for that sort of thing. Like the idea of trying to explain to a primitive person that this is this is technology, not magic. Here's how this works. And then that kind of thing, that it played out very similarly. And then the concept of dressing up and actually having cosmetic surgery to some extent to blend in with the natives. That was another aspect of it, which I thought was interesting.
I was going to say, are you accusing Richard Manning and Hans Beimler of
I don't know. It is really weird, though.
They both wrote a bunch of episodes, so I won't get, and then we've talked about them before, so I won't get into all the episodes they've written. And we're producers, and Hans worked on DS9 a lot, but they were big Star Trek people. They wrote 15 episodes. And while we're on it was directed by Robert Weimer, who directed 8 episodes of Next Generation, starting with this one. Ray Wise falls. He gets electrocuted. He falls. And Picard says they should have let him die.
He strongly implied it.
Which felt really harsh to me. I feel like the better option would be to just let him stay on the Enterprise and let his people think he disappeared and fell down a cliff, rather than just kill him.
Huh.
Is that breaking the Prime Directive just to remove a member of the society because you have not interfered with the development of the society?
I think, and I think Crusher makes the argument, and I think she makes 2 arguments, but she's like, 1, this was our fault.
Yeah.
So we need to fix this.
Valid.
2, I think because it's said a lot later in this episode, we took a vow to follow the Prime Directive, but Crusher also took the space Hippocratic Oath. Right. So, and to Crusher, it's pretty obvious that Hippocratic Oath takes precedent over the Prime Directive. And I think McCoy always did the same thing too. I think McCoy was always like, I'm thinking of Friday's Child because we were just talking about it, but I think to McCoy, it takes precedent too. Absolutely. I think he was always like, nope, I'm saving this person. I don't care about the Prime Directive. And I don't think McCoy did care about the Prime Directive.
I like the name drop where they're like, can't you just do what Pulaski did and erase their memory?
I like that.
And I like that Crusher threw shade back no, I'm not going to do that.
Well,
he said, I don't even know I could if I wanted to because their physiology is different. But it felt very much like she was judging Pulaski. And no, I'm not that kind of doctor.
Well, all right.
I think I read that's the last reference to Pulaski.
That's such a shame.
On TV, yeah.
They should have at least had her back for the series finale.
Yeah.
All right. Since I just watched this today, Picard is one who described the technique to some extent, sort of vaguely, and Crusher actually brought up the name Pulaski in reference. I'm familiar with Pulaski's technique, but blah blah blah, the physiology maybe, and so I guess it didn't work.
This is the short-term memory recall.
It did not work at all.
I have my own technique. It's called Absolute. That's my short-term memory recall erase.
That's a pretty good technique.
It's proven effective. I've tested it many times.
That would have
Actually,
worked out with Sonny in the previous season.
now that you mention it, I mean, and I know that this drug has, obviously bad connotations to it, but why not use like the forget me nows, essentially? Just roofie them and put him back down on the on the planet.
Isn't it only effective if you roofie them before he sees them?
Or get
I think it would blur a little bit more. You can knock him, that's...
Get Sailor from sick bay and just have her do the mind meld and say forget.
There you go.
Although to be fair, I think that takes a lot out of I think it has to be a personal thing because it takes a lot out of the Vulcan.
Right. Well, there's a plot explanation too, in the sense that they didn't know that the daughter had seen them, but she had, and this sort of conveniently kind of set up the further contamination later. Mm-hmm. Because if Picard had actually said, let's just keep him on the ship, there still would have been that other contamination.
Yeah. Just a real quick note before we move on. There was some weird hypnotic kind of music after he fell, and everyone's rushing up. And I didn't think we'd heard that before, and I actually liked it. So I just want to note that.
Yeah. I don't remember.
It was very 80s on the cusp of the 90s-ish, but
very
I liked it.
Wait,
yeah.
who was rushing up to him?
The daughter and the other people like, oh, my dad, he fell. All the people out there doing that. There's some weird music, and it goes on after they've reached him. It's kind of a... I'm sounding like Harold Faltermeyer, but no, it's more of a late 80s kind of a thing.
Yeah, the daughter was the only one present when he actually fell out of he got shocked and fell down the
Maybe
cliff.
it's that part. It also plays over the Enterprise folks freaking out. Yeah.
All right.
So this episode, I'm kind of surprised they got away with this on television in 1989, but it really slams religion. They talk about religion being out millennia ago, countless generations before the Bronze Age, which I was excited about. But like they talk about, that was so backwards, that was so whatever. And I'm like, 70 years ago, your own Starfleet officers still believed in God. Maybe once Kirk found God in the center of the universe, now it's backwards and ancient. But it felt like not consistent with the rest of Star Trek, because we certainly have religious people in Star Trek.
Sure.
Really big in DS9. There's people that are religious, but
see, I don't know. That wasn't the impression I got. I thought it was more Picard being appalled at the way that the religion was going to be used, or the discussion with the
I took it as any god is superstitious and backwards, and
I did too, Jimmy. I
agree with it. I'm just surprised they got
he was going the direction Keith's saying, that it was primitive, all that, but it was definitely very like. I think it was very much like they all are. Yeah, I'm with you, Jimmy.
As much as I totally agree with that sentiment, if I go and tell people today that I felt that way, I get a reaction. So the fact that they could air this 30 years ago and get away with it shocks me.
I went through the same thought process. I was like, Trekkers on a Saturday night will be like, this is pretty cool. The common person, it might have just gone over their head or whatever. Yeah. And they might have taken because they're simple people. It's like, you're a simple person. But anyway, send your cards and letters to
Jimmy.
to Donald Trump. 1500 Pennsylvania Avenue.
If
you're upset about this, you're probably a Trump supporter anyway. So just tell him.
I want to go on record. Just to go back to this, I want to say, first of all, yes, I would also agree with that sentiment and the idea that, yes, religions end up being more harmful than good in the long run. And also, I would be shocked if they... See, I feel like the censors or whoever would be trying to letting these things go through probably didn't interpret it that way either. The state of television, for probably even still today to some extent, you can't really get shows on mainstream television without there being that message underlying that someone who is an atheist has this specific reason for being atheist. They've been wronged. They've had some sort of loss. But no, it's really okay to have. They have to balance it with that kind of the fair and balanced point of view of there being another really religious character to say no, but it's about faith and this condescending kind of you just don't get it kind of attitude.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's just that was a staple.
Riker had a good line here. It's worse than we expected. Minnetonkaans are beginning to believe in God. And that goes exactly with the conversation. Like all of the Enterprise were, we're not going to believe in gods. I like the Picard too. I thought that was a fun way to do it.
Yeah, and of course their god is a man.
So one of my very few complaints about this episode, but the leader of the colony was a woman.
I thought that was a good balance.
One of my very few complaints about this episode is they leave the guy behind to tie up Riker, but it's the one guy that doesn't know how to tie knots, and Riker's like, that knot's not going to hold. Let me show you. And he's like, sure, go ahead.
He could have been bluffing too, though.
And of course, he ends up getting tied up, but I'm like, why did you leave the one guy behind that doesn't know how to tie knots to tie somebody up? Doesn't make sense.
I thought that whole sequence, that and Riker trying to escape with that body.
He sure ran a lot further than he needed to.
Yeah.
I thought that whole thing was a Jerry Lewis movie. I wanted more of that. Yeah, he was just such a screw up about it. Like, oh, people are coming. Whoa. And I enjoyed it, though.
It bothered me how he ran past several perfectly good rocks he could have ducked behind to
right
a little cave.
Actually, when the place he ducked into with the guy, that was the point where I was like, this is the start, this is Vasquez Rocks.
Yeah.
That was the moment where I decided for absolutely sure that was Vasquez Rocks.
I made a note, and this actually is addressed later on in the story, but at this point I was like, why are they so sure they know what the Picard wants? And I appreciated that note was then addressed by characters talking about how do you know what God wants?
Yeah, and that gets into not an atheist thing, but more of a, hey guys, who are we to decide what and what is this based on? Well, and as crazy as we thought Ray Wise's character was, it's like, no, we know those people, and and actually, like I'm thinking now we're going deep atheist. I'm thinking of Dear God by XTC, where it's like everyone makes up their own things, like, oh, this is what God, that's all. Every religion has their own, like, oh, this is what God meant, and this is what He's saying, and so everybody was doing. There were several, and it makes sense maybe that in this colony of 35 people, as we always see on Star Trek, that there would be many different views on what the Picard is trying to say.
I did wonder, though, if they're all so anti-religion and they've gotten past religion, why is OG and then not shy about telling what she saw? Right. Like, if she doesn't have an explanation, she's like immediately, her and her dad, like, yep, God's real, blah, blah, blah. Right. You'd think, based on the way the society they live in, that they'd be a little more cautious about proclaiming that.
Well, if we go with Vulcans and there are always possibilities, that could be one of the possibilities.
Yeah, no, that was one of the great things about, I think maybe it was the leader or one of the women when they were having the discussion in the village. It was very much a open-minded examination of what was going on and just collecting the facts and saying, this supports the idea that there is a God up there. I get it. And it wasn't like so it's like they were approaching these discussions without prejudice about the stigma behind whatever it would mean. It's just, we need to investigate this and then try to decide to do, based on all the facts we can get, which I really appreciated again.
And I guess it makes sense with Ray Wise's character's backstory that he would be, in theory, going for the easy answer from the Picard.
So taking all this into account, why aren't they confused by Troy's accent?
That occurred to me very briefly, but I wondered. Well, first of all, she said that she was visiting from somewhere else. They were
so was Riker, and he didn't have the accent.
No. My point is that implies that there are further villages away in this planet. There are other colonies. Maybe they've even encountered people with like variations, like Earth-like variations on accents. We don't know. So
these guys all spoke perfect English. So
that's where I was going, which it got me to thinking like that's exactly Keith. I was like, oh, good thing they all speak English. Oh, maybe it's a universal translator. Yeah. So maybe through her universal translator, Deanna doesn't have an accent. And where Naraya is, because she's the one who's like, no, let's try and figure this out. But if it doesn't work, we're going to kill this one. Is that logic?
At a certain point, to try the scientific method, we've got this person here. We might as well try. If this doesn't work, we might as well try this to see what happens.
I guess it might be logical from I'm going to threaten this person and maybe she'll talk now. From that point of view, I guess it makes sense. I think Spock would do that.
It could have been a bluff.
I think Spock has done that. And they're not necessarily Vulcans. They're proto-Vulcans.
Right.
Anyway,
they clearly haven't gotten rid of emotion yet.
My point about going on that whole rant about the way religion was portrayed in TV and so forth it still seems you could see that many of their disparaging comments were couched in the idea that these were negative consequences. They could see something bad was going to happen as a result of what they did. Finding religion as a result of the Prime Directive would be like the worst possible thing that they could do to influence a society. Whether or not you say that religion is good or bad, that effect is a very dramatic result of having, interacted with them.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
And also the whole thing about interpreting God's will was there's a great example of that in second season Rick and Morty, which Stephen might not have gotten to yet.
I haven't got there yet.
All right, well,
but I will.
Jimmy probably knows what I'm talking about. Show me what you got. So.
We still don't have O'Brien on the transporter. Kind of feel like if we had O'Brien, he would have been able to beam him up.
Yeah.
So Picard decides to beam Nuria up to the ship. So many things that I don't know. Like I said, I think I have a different take on how this should have been handled. But anyway, he beams him up. It felt like a very Star Trek First Contact moment when he's showing Lily around and letting her look at Earth from above. We'll get to that movie. I just think this episode had so many movie references for me. And we missed the perfect opportunity of Nuria never asked Picard, what does God need with a starship?
If only she understood what a starship was.
I do love that moment where Picard is like, I'm getting through to this person. She's very smart. She's going to be a great leader. And then they're like, nope, she's still. Yeah, I was just like,
I thought it was
that was a great
reasonable.
moment.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It did seem pretty easy up to that point. I mean, it wasn't. It was earned to the point where it's like, yeah, maybe she's a pretty logical person. Maybe she is buying this, but no, it wouldn't necessarily be that easy. And I love that.
Picard takes her hand and shows her death. Kirk would have just slept with her.
In Shakespearean times, that was also called death.
It's only a little death.
Although that's marriage.
Oh my God.
Kidding. No,
send your letters to
Donald J. Trump. He doesn't care about marriage. I do wonder how Starfleet's going to see Picard's actions, because I feel like, again, take a few individuals out of the equation and you can still salvage the situation. And instead, Picard kind of leaned into it and went down and revealed himself and is just trusting the city not to spread that knowledge through the rest of the population. And I do think because it's the specific species, they may be able to see the logic in that and actually follow his recommendations. But I don't know. I feel like if we had just removed the individuals early on, or even just removed this one colony and be like, okay, this city disappeared like Roanoke, let's remove it. That still spares the civilization from being messed up by it.
That's not bad at all, actually. I mean, that's extreme, but maybe in the long run, less extreme than doing that.
When you say remove, you mean like maybe move them just to another planet altogether?
Nope. Yeah. Remove them.
Or just kill them. No, not kill them. No, resettle them somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that idea too.
I thought just taking, I mean, there's only like 35 of them, just like add them to the
Actually keep their 11,000.
Oh. In that one village.
So
11,000 in that one village. That's why we only saw 10.
And I'm glad we're getting into the Prime Directive stuff, because I wrote down Prime Directive equals, I wanted to say blurred lines, but I wrote what Colleen calls that song, which is arbitrary lines. But it's always, but I thought this one tried to deal with it.
Yeah.
I do feel like we've had a lot of colony episodes for season 3.
Yes, we have. It's been
the whole season 3, basically.
Wow.
Jimmy's idea of moving them to another planet is my other alternate episode at this point. But I'll get to my other one when we get there.
But the Prime Directive discussions. I think part of the reason why he got to where he got was I liked that discussion, the meeting room. What do you call it? The conference room, whatever.
The observation lounge, I believe is what it's actually called.
Where he brought in the anthropologist. And he was giving he was all for it, like scrap it, just let's go. Damage is already done. They like to make that argument quite a bit, but I thought that he was mostly correct up to a point about the damage already being done. You need to do. I mean, they're at the point where it's better to try to find methods that would mitigate what has happened, cauterize it to whatever extent. Maybe removing them, which I hadn't really thought to do, would have been the correct fix for that overall. But What I liked was, even though Picard seemed like he wasn't going to follow the guy's recommendation at all, he eventually got to the point where he realized that if he believes in it that strongly, he actually put himself in harm's way to prove that point. Like every episode we've seen up to this point, especially Pen Pals, I'd say, he would say something to the effect of like, we took these oaths to defend this with our lives if necessary. It always seemed very abstract because it's always somebody else he's talking about, but he went down himself, put himself in front of that arrow and said, okay, I'm ready to die if this is what's going to take. So,
and I think that made up for a lot of what you could argue are missteps by putting his life on the line there.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this is why Picard won't be my annoyance of the episode, because, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of reasons he won't be. It just, yeah, whether I agree with the way he handled it or not, he was consistent in his thinking. He was trying to make the situation better. And
Colleen and I got in a Prime Directive conversation because she was around for this episode.
Nice.
Why shouldn't they, fix things or whatever, or save people? If somebody's ailing, they should take care of them. And why not fix these things? And then, like, she made the great point, like, because what if you screw it up? And I think that's a good point too. And we've seen that in so many TOS and TNG episodes where, they're like, oh, I'm going to fix this. Oh, you were not the right person to do it, and that was not the right method to do it. And I think that makes sense. And then I went deeper and even more sci-fi and not quite TOS, but same era. I asked, and Colleen has a good answer for this too, and you guys might have good answers too. I said, what's the difference between the monolith in 2001, which I interpret as every time the monolith shows up in 2001, the species advances, man advances. They get this knowledge that allows them to take that leap. And what's the difference between that and what we're talking about here with the Prime Directive? And she said, well, the monolith's the monolith, and that information just gets transferred. In Trek, we're talking about people getting involved, and people screw things up, and the message gets screwed up.
Yeah.
And the monolith is the monolith because it's a very advanced being. The Federation, and I'm giving all this credit to Colleen for coming up with this. The Federation, though, is people, and even as we know, 400 years from now, they're still going to be not perfect. So I think that's a good distinction. And I think
fallible.
They're very fallible. I think that's a good distinction of why the Prime Directive is important, but it obviously has. And I think arbitrary lines make sense because as much as you try and apply a blanket to it, I think, as we've seen obviously through 8+ seasons of and movies plus the movies of dealing with the Prime Directive, it's never simple. And I shouldn't say never. It's quite often not simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave me a few revelations as you were talking about that. First of all, the monolith. If I hadn't realized that was a being of any sort, but
yeah, and it could be. It's not explained, but in my mind, it's whether it's an advanced race or it's God or whatever
right.
it is. It's not doing those things.
I think the important distinction there is the monolith is like an object that represents like a checkpoint. That is something you can put somewhere that you can kind of predict that theoretically, if this species reaches this physical point, they're ready to learn this. It's like the game theory of setting up a video game, and here you are, you've made it here. You need to know this much to get further than this point. If you put it into the hands of someone who is sentient, you get into the idea, or you get into the problem of human arrogance and just inconsistent, political ideologies, especially when it would come to religion in that sense. Well, so you would want to set up like a blanket ruling this probably happened like to the point where they need to make this rule where it's like, come on guys, all right, here it is. Nobody gets to do anything ever. And that you have to say that so that that realistically somebody's probably going to end up doing something by accident. But if they're trying to adhere to the idea that we don't want to affect anything,
right?
They'll at least try to do what Picard did and eventually get to the point where you mitigate as much as possible.
Well, and we also, and I brought this up too while we're here, and this ties into the whole religion thing when I was talking about people showing up and we're going to help try and fix things. We know missionaries have gone places and they're trying to spread religion and trying to improve things, but then they end up bringing plague, pestilence, and a bunch of other things. And is it so great, again, to go back to our atheist discussion, is it so great that they brought religion there? And, we've heard about things like, I'll drop Tim Tebow, the idea was like, well, we're going to give you stuff, but you have to decide that Jesus is your person. Otherwise, we're not going to help you with these things, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess we've got the prime directive going on here, or not going on right here. And so maybe there's an argument for, and then and another conversation would be, and we've talked about this a little bit too, is U.S. or any other country's imperialism, where it's like, we're here to save you. No, you're not. You're here to colonize us, and you might improve our lives, but you're also going to put us in chains and destroy our landscape and all that stuff. That's another much broader discussion too. But
you hit like the four major points right there. Just the idea of colonialism. Improvement is a subjective term to begin with, and also it's just the corruption of the idea of. It's hard to keep individuals or organizations from wanting to do a tit for tat of some sort and just try to benefit themselves in the process. You have to accept these gifts on our terms. And
and I think I'll go back to the original series again. I think the fact that this came about during that time, and Gene Roddenberry's thoughts and stuff, but our experience in Vietnam was very much we're going to sell a lot of Coca-Cola, and we're going to save these people. And we're going to change everything. And a lot of people made money and a lot of things went terrible there. But that was our thought going in. And, you can watch a lot of movies and documentaries and get it all that on that. I'll save that for other people. But, we've gotten way off track here. But, I think all those things are at play. I think that's what makes the prime directive a lasting concept. I think those conversations are obviously still worth having now. So
you also made me think just now of another great, probably one of the great Family Guy references that really is that perfect tongue-in-cheek moment when they had Stewie and Brian enlisting. They were in Iraq, I think, and they did the whole thing where it's like the whole mission accomplished moment where democracy is here, and they just do that wipe of everything. It's like the woman in burqas turning into like bikini girls doing a car wash, and just the whole thing just ta-da. That's what we envision colonization as. We're fixing everything by making everything like this. And
I like that our Seinfeld part of the episode is transitioning into the Family Guy part of the episode.
God.
When Troy is talking on a communicator and she's just saying, that might have been one of the most sexual moments to me in TNG so far. The way she did it, the way she said it,
and because Data didn't get it and Riker did.
Exactly. And I just thought that's another one of those little, we've talked about, again, original series, like all the work they had to do to get around the censors with all these things. And I think these guys, obviously, we're still doing it in the late 80s. It's still Reagan's America to a great extent. And they're still kind of working around those things. I just think that was just well played, and it's so subtle. And I really enjoyed that moment. I was like, am I missing something? I don't care if I am, actually, because this is fantastic. Oh, when Nuraya's on the Enterprise and she's looking out at the planet and everything, and she's like, "Yet I do not fall." I was like, and we've talked about my fear of heights. I was like, my thoughts exactly. If you took me up to a ship right now, a starship, and we're like, "There's Earth," I'd still be like, my legs. I would not have my space legs at all at that point, and I would get wobbly too. So I thought,
you start seeing gremlins on the outside.
My last note is, and I can't remember if this is the woman from the duck blind that dies. I think it is. A crusher goes and puts 2 fingers on her neck. Even in the 24th century, that's the best way to try and get a pulse and see if someone's still alive. It's 2 fingers on the neck. So,
well, it's the second best if you don't have a mirror.
Or a tricorder.
Troy's in another new outfit.
Yeah, everything on the planet was okay. It was, Proto-Vulcan. It was typical Proto-Vulcan.
Well, that actually occurred to me as I was watching it. Something about the textiles or whatever they do to just make it seem like this is a colonial fabric or print or something. It was a weird kind of generic thing that sort of happens in that Bronze Age you were saying, just whatever stage. This is how you dress. This is how the clothes kind of happen. I don't know. But,
I would like the architecture to be different in one of these colonies too, in one of these old colonies. But
alternate episodes.
So the one I mentioned earlier, which I like, mine is I wanted to see when Riker, from the moment he starts trying to hide that guy, I just want to see his antics the whole rest of the movie, or just Jerry Lewis antics. Everything he does he is screwing up. He's taking that guy, he's taking him up to that place, he gets him in the hole, and then he falls down the mountain. And his whole time trying to get back to that guy, and they just keep kind of missing each other. But he knows he's on the right track.
Should they have been doing more like Weekend at Bernie's gags, or having him just have him dropping the body and having it roll places, and the guy just
he's like, "Oh, we're fine. Are you sure? Hey, tell me, are you okay? I'm okay." Yeah, it should have been a bunch of that stuff. I just thought it was.
My alternate episode is just there was a question mark at the end of the title. Because otherwise, I thought this was a pretty good episode. I don't want to mess with it too much.
Yeah.
How annoying was Wesley? Scale of 1 to 10.
Was he in it?
Nope.
He definitely wasn't. So,
no score. Who was your annoyance of the week?
Laura Palmer's dad.
Ray Wise?
Yeah.
Mine was the colonist that couldn't tie knots. I don't really have a good answer, so that's my answer.
You can't really get much better than Ray Wise in this one, but I mean, I still think
I didn't find him annoying at all.
I still think the knot thing, I think that was a bluff on Riker's part. I think, anybody's gonna be able to like pull a string around something. I think he just saw an opportunity to distract him.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So you're going with Ray Wise?
I am.
Maybe the daughter, but no. There really aren't many options
for
here.
His actions, I didn't find him annoying because I understood his. Oh well. Yeah. That's okay. Everybody can have their own.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not that you didn't have a good reason to do it, but it's still when you have that person who's kind of pushing toward that antagonistic angle of, we need to appease the god now. I know what the god wants because let's go for the quickest thing that's killed.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
I'll give you that.
He was quick to kill, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Crush of Star Trek. Anybody want to change?
Yeah. I looked at OG, but I felt like, is she underage? Probably not.
Probably is underage, was my assumption.
This is purely one of my base choices where the woman was just very attractive. It's early on in the episode, there's an assistant for Crusher, very beautiful woman. Michelle Guerin's her real name. Her daughter is Guerin Taylor, who's a model and she's been in some BET reality series. She was in a documentary, America the Beautiful, in 2007. She was in Ripley's Believe It or Not as herself also in 2003. Anyway, her mom is Michelle Guerin, who was in this episode for 8 seconds.
Okay.
So her real name is not Very Beautiful Woman.
Crusher's assistant is my...
I'm going to go with Nuria. I like Nuria.
Yeah.
Keith?
I don't even remember who I picked before, honestly, right now. It's just...
Ardrian, the woman that Data had the thing with.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
But we know there were Vulcans in this episode, so I'm guessing you're going to change.
I actually am tempted to go with Nuria for that very same reason. Just there's something about the way that she was able to reason things out and was willing to.
Yeah.
But just staying with the prototypical nerd girl for the moment.
Okay. And then ranking the episode, I'll be honest, I'm inclined to put it first.
Yeah, I think it's between this and last week's, right? I feel like. Yeah. And I think the fact that we spent a half an hour on the Prime Directive. I think it's the two things we in the best Star Trek we see these married, which is sci-fi concepts and thoughts and conversations, and just for lack of a better term, a fun quote unquote fun episode. And I thought this put those together really well. I don't know that I'm like put in the top 10 of all time Star Trek, but it was and for this season so far as well, especially, I think it's. I agree. I put it.
Yeah, I think there were several episodes last season that were better, but of these four, so far we've ranked these episodes 4, 3, 2, 1. Each one's been better than the last one.
All right, can't wait till next week.
Oh, I'm sorry to tell you, I remember next week's episode. I think it's going to break the streak. Not that it's awful, but I don't think
it's a holodeck episode.
No. It's called The Bonding. A startling surprise awaits the crew of the Enterprise when a mission costs the life of a crew member who left her teenage son behind. So we got an orphan to deal with on the Enterprise.
Oh, God.
When their parents die, her mother dies. His mother dies in a away mission, so we have an orphan to deal with, a teenage boy.
Nope. Well, yeah.
Those are never my favorite episodes of Star Trek. But
I can't even make a joke about that. That just doesn't really sound like it's gonna.
It's Jeremy Astor, if you remember Jeremy Astor. That's not the actor, that's the character's name. And I remember Jeremy Astor. And I kind of wish we could skip it, even though I think I'm probably going to think it's a decent episode. But oh well. Until then, live long.
Be willing to give your life for the Prime Directive and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?